Support comes from Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to sustainable and sound conservation of the state's forests, which support more than 41,000 Missouri jobs, resulting in a $10 billion industry. ChooseWood.com.
Thank you for listening to this St. Louis on the Air podcast brought to you by Lindenwood University's Hammond Institute for Free Enterprise, examining market approaches to help solve economic and social issues. Hammond.Institute.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Don Marsh. The March 5th city primary election is less than 2 weeks away. The only citywide race is for president of the Board of Aldermen. Victory in the Democratic primary, usually considered tantamount to election in this overwhelmingly Democratic city. Once recalled Alderman, Democrat Jimmy Matthews is in the race for aldermanic president, but 3 other Democrats are considered the top candidates in that contest, and they join me. Seeking re-election is Lewis Reed, the 12-year incumbent. He faces State Senator and former State Representative Jamilah Nasheed. She joins us by phone from Jefferson City. Also in studio is 15th Ward Alderwoman Megan Green. Thank you all so much for being with us. Great to have you.
Thanks for having us.
I'm going to
Thanks for having me.
Going to start with something that's current, and Lewis Reed, I'll start with you. As I'm sure you're aware, an Islamic group in St. Louis today basically is demanding that you apologize to Senator Nasheed for comments you have made saying that she's ineligible to run because of her name. It's different from the name she was born with.
I just came out of a meeting with the group, and I was very clear about what my position is. Jamilah Nasheed supposedly changed her name in 2005, legally changed her name in 2005. In 2015, she's made major purchases, property purchases under her original name, Janice Williams, in 2015. And our laws are that, to be on the ballot, the name that should appear on the ballot is the name of the taxpayer, because you have to be a taxpayer to be on the ballot. But I think the bigger issue here is when you look at the fact that she's using both names, Jamilah Nasheed and Janice Williams, and getting major bank loans under Janice Williams. I think that's problematic.
No apology, I take it.
No, not at this time.
For this. Senator,
because we're asking for a clarification. And it doesn't matter to me what name is on the ballot, whether it's Jamilah Nasheed or Janice Williams. But what matters to me is that, whatever the law is, that we're staying in the confines of the law.
Senator, would you like to address that?
Yes, all of my personal property taxes and contracts are under Jamilah Nasheed. I don't care my opponent getting that from. However, it's unfortunate that my opponent has to stoop down to this level of lowness. This is purely Islamic phobia that he is perpetuating and pushing. However, I want to be able to talk about the issues and why I'm running for president of the Board of Aldermen. And I think that's what we need to begin to deal with. Why we need new leadership in the city of St. Louis and not go back and forth with a name. I changed my name just like Malcolm X changed his name. I changed my name just like Muhammad Ali changed his name. And all of my documents are legal documents. Even with my personal property, it says Janice Williams, a.k.a.
Okay, you want to make one other comment, then?
Yes,
Mr. Reed, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, that is not truth, and I will provide you the documentation. And I just invite you to put the documents up on your website so people can see it. This job of president of the Board of Aldermen is a very important job, right? Especially if you're the chief lawmaker for the city. And I think that the voters deserve a right to really, truly understand who's the taxpayer here.
Okay. Senator, come back at that, if you will, then we'll move on.
Well, again, at the end of the day, people don't want to know or hear about if Jamilah's name is Jamilah. Okay? People want to know why their streets are not being paved, Why we have a 20% unemployment rate among black men under the current leadership. Why African Americans are not getting minority contracts on major projects. People want to know why there are so many dollars being diverted to big developers at the expense of taking monies from the public school system under the current leadership. Those are the things that people care about right now. I mean, this petty going back and forth with, oh, that's not her name. People don't want to hear that. People want to know how we're going to reduce crime. You know, that's what they want to know. And that's not what the current president is giving them. He's giving them only buffoonery throughout this campaign, and that's appalling. Don, and that's why we need new leadership.
Don, this issue started with the senator raising these issues, and only thing we did was respond with the appropriate documentation. I've, throughout my history in politics, have always attempted to keep things about the issue. I've been working to keep this campaign about the issues, but the senator has not wanted to do that. So I'm inviting her to clean up her campaign and clean up the act so that we can focus on the issue, because there are a lot of important issues that we need to discuss during the course of this campaign.
As she has just indicated, there is another candidate in the race, though, sitting here, kind of on the sidelines, Alderwoman Green. I mean, how do you feel about that? You're kind of shut out of this particular part of the discussion.
You know, I'm happy to be here talking about policy, and I think we have major public policy issues in the city, and I think we need leadership that is going to be willing to embrace what is working in other cities. I'm a big proponent of Operation Peacemaker, which was done in Richmond, California, reduced their crime rates, including their homicide rates, by over 60% over a 5-year period. I believe that we need to scale back our use of tax incentives so that we have a citywide plan for development that is driven by communities and ensures that we have funding into our schools and for city services. And I think we need to take Clean Missouri down to the local level and clean up our local politics and get the big money out of our system. And these are big issues that people in our city care about. And when we are name calling, we are deflecting from talking about the issues that voters want to hear from us.
Going forward, what do you think is the most important issue that you could directly impact as president of the Board of Aldermen?
I think the city budget. The city is not in good financial state. Our CAFR just came out, which is the net position for the city, and our financial outlook has been getting worse and worse and worse every year. And the reason that the president of the board is so important is because the president, along with the mayor and the comptroller, oversees the city budget and contract and real estate decisions. And we're going to have to make some very different decisions with regard to our city budget in order to get us on financial track.
Same question to you, Senator Nasheed. What do you think that you could most directly impact, the most important issue you can most directly impact as president of the board?
You know, the budget is the most important, powerful piece of legislation that we can deal with on the local level. And what we need to do is begin to use incentives to rebuild North St. Louis instead of giving those incentives, the TIF dollars, to big development and big corporations. What we need to do is now begin to look at neighborhood development and how we can put TIF dollars towards rebuilding some parts of South Side and North Side. But again, the biggest impact that I can have as a president of the Board of Aldermen is just having a mouthpiece to be able to look at how do we do public-private partnerships when it comes to after-school programs. How do we do public-private partnerships when it comes to being able to get young people the math and science tutoring that they need? I mean, it's a major mouthpiece that you can have to be able to reduce the crime rate that we're seeing in the city of St. Louis. Right now, we have a homicide rate of approximately 50%. Over the last 20 years. And that's why we have individuals that are not willing to come into the St. Louis area to work, live, and play because of the crime rate in our city. That is the number one issue. And I would like to see more monies going towards how reducing crime by way of diversion programs in the city of St. Louis, truancy programs, and things of that sort.
Same question to you, Lewis Reed.
Well, essentially anything that my opponents say they'd like to see more money go toward, we've done it, right? We've, through our Prop S funds, we've helped over 20,000 kids across the city and set them back on the right path. That was my bill. I did it, got it done. When we look at affordable housing, our Affordable Housing Trust Fund, I was one of the 10 people that created the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Through that Affordable Housing Trust Fund, we've now provided over 1.5 million homeless bed nights, 2,000 affordable housing units, helped over 11,000 families across our city, 8,000 with rent and mortgage help so that those families weren't thrown out of their homes, and over 8,000 kids through after-school programs and the like. So we've done those things. The city of St. Louis, when we look at our credit rating, one of the major things that's missing is a economic development strategy. So now I passed an ordinance now that requires the city of St. Louis to to develop an annual economic development strategy and to assure that that strategy is submitted to all of the rating agencies. Why is that important? Because that affects our credit rating, it affects our cost for money. But more importantly, Don, we have to have an economy that's on the move. So when you look at an issue like the soccer stadium, it's not a this or that sort of decision. It's when we have an issue like the soccer stadium, where we're a city of 320,000 people. That soccer stadium would bring to the city of St. Louis somewhere in the neighborhood of 350,000 people to rent our hotel rooms, to shop at our stores and the like, and we could create employment from that. This is why I brought forth the plan Operation Ceasefire and Operation Cure Violence, which has been shown to decrease the violent crime rate in cities across America by up to 50-60% in the first year. And you've probably heard me talk about this before, but as the president of the Board of Aldermen, you're one vote and you're in the legislative branch. You do not control the executive branch, and there's no magic wand that would allow you to uniformly change the operation of the police department. It doesn't work that way.
Let me ask you to slow down a little bit.
Okay.
We've got two other people involved in this conversation. I think you're going to do a long soliloquy.
Okay.
We can't have that.
Sorry about that.
Anything you've heard there, Megan Green?
I think, going back to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, for years that fund was not being given the $5 million a year that when that ordinance was passed said that fund should have. And right now there's still about $2.5 million that fund is owed for all of the years that it was underfunded. I think that if we're making affordable housing a priority like we need to, we have an affordable housing crisis in our city right now with 60% of the people living under the poverty line being cost burdened in their housing. We not only need to have it at the $5 million a year, but we need to be looking at increasing that to $7-8 million a year because we have a homelessness crisis as well. The second thing I'll say, when we have this fascination with sports stadiums in this town, and what we found, overwhelming bodies of research tell us that sports stadiums actually are not good drivers of economic development for cities, and cities that use this as an economic development strategy tend to have weaker economies than ones that don't. The Scott Trade Center bonding that was passed through the Board of Aldermen, we ended up having our credit rating downgraded. And the credit rating agencies specifically cited because we were issuing bonds for non-essentials. We have to fundamentally make different budgetary decisions, make different priorities, I think, in order to change the trajectory of our city.
Hold on just a second, Mr. Reed. I want to bring the senator in quickly. I have to take a break. Senator, can you hold any comment you have to what you just heard for a moment? We'll come back and bring you in, all right?
Thank you.
All righty. Okay, we'll take that break now. Come back and continue our conversation on the race for the presidency of the St. Louis Board of Aldermen. By the way, we'd like to hear from you in the audience. We're going to forget the phone calls today and really rely on your emails at stlpublictalk@stlpublicradio.org or tweets at STL on air. If you want to communicate, that's the way to do it, and we'd like you to do it as soon as you feel like you'd like to. And we'll be back in a moment. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU. And welcome back to our conversation with the major candidates for the St. Louis Aldermanic presidency election, which is taking place, the primary election taking place on March 5th. With me in studio are Alderwoman Megan Green and St. Louis Aldermanic President Louis Reed. He's seeking a fourth term. Joining us by phone from Jefferson City is State Senator Jamilah Nasheed. And Senator, let me come back to you with regard to what you've just heard from the other two. If you'd like to respond, good. If not, we'll move on to some other things.
Yeah, I would love to respond, especially to the crime issue, because that's what's really plaguing our community in the St. Louis area. And both of my opponents, they have great talking points in terms of being able to bring programs in from outside of the city of St. Louis. However, I believe that we should give our police chief and public safety director a chance to implement the rectangle model. The rectangle model is what they're using right now. And they're partnering with the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, and they're also partnering with social service organizations so that they can look at the crime-ridden neighborhood, target that neighborhood, not only with services and resources, but also with a partnership with the FBI and the DEA and the ATF. So we have a rectangle method pilot program here in the city of St. Louis right now. We don't have to go outside. We need to just allow for our police chief and allow for the public safety director to implement it, see how impactful it is, and if it's working, we continue to use it throughout the city of St. Louis. And another issue right now is that we have a lot of young men coming out of prison, and they're coming back to the city of St. Louis. They're knocking on the doors of opportunity. These doors are slammed in their faces. So what we have to do is be able to create more reentry programs. I put approximately $800,000 in the reentry program for the last 6 years from the state level. And we also have to look at crime as a crisis, a public health crisis. And until we're ready to look at crime as a public health crisis, only then will we be able to bring in the type of workforce training that's needed in order to help those individuals get out of the life of crime and begin to live productive citizens.
Senator, while we're on the subject of crime, we have an email from one of our listeners who writes, "My question for the candidates is related to crime. While all three have plans that to some extent address the root causes of crime in our area, those solutions will take years to make an impact. Meantime, what are the candidates' plans for addressing crime in the near term? I'd like to see a change in the next few months, not years." I'll throw that your way, Megan Green.
So I'll say that actually a lot of the plans that we've been talking about don't take years. So Operation Peacemaker, they saw pretty immediate results because what they recognized is that there's a small group of people that tend to be involved in the majority of gun crimes. And they took a public health approach to it and said, if we can kind of get a handle around these individuals, get them into jobs and resources and supportive housing and whatever it was that they needed to change their trajectory, we could stop violence from spreading. And so while it took 5 years for a 60% overall reduction in crime, there were very immediate impact that were felt by starting to work with those individuals right away. I will also say, kind of speaking to the triangle model, I think our number one priority needs to be to keep people out of the criminal justice system, provide those supports, because we do know that the doors of opportunity are slammed in people's faces once they enter that system. And so if we can provide the mental health, substance abuse, job training, education that folks need, those early interventions to stop them from ever getting into the system in the first place, that ends up having long-term long-term impacts as well.
Lewis Reed, what about a quick fix to solve the crime problem?
First, I'd like to have an opportunity to respond to the last question. I didn't get a chance to talk about that when we were talking about the rating agencies and diversion programs and stuff. The city of St. Louis, if we look at why our credit rating was downgraded, again, our credit rating was not downgraded because of the Peabody, right, or the Blues hockey stadium. It was downgraded because of multiple factors, and I think it's important that people understand that. When we look at the issues of public safety, and if we want some immediate change, we would go with Operation Ceasefire, Operation Cure Violence. That model has proven to work all across the country. Operation Peacemaker is a pilot program that they're trying in one city, but it does not have the legacy that this major program has. East St. Louis did a spinoff of a very similar program last year and dropped their murder rate by 42% 1 year. So, if we want to see immediate change, I think we eliminate as many of the unknowns as possible. We're already investing heavily into our drug courts, and I work to get the $1 million to the city of St. Louis to address the issues of our opioid abuse and things of that nature. And we're putting more money into our youth programs and services. But truly, to address this issue, we need a unified umbrella plan that ties in together all of these various different aspects of public safety. It brings the court systems into play. It brings them under the tent with each and every nonprofit across the city, all of the city departments, elected officials, but more importantly, our neighborhoods. I was one of the people that helped to create the neighborhood ownership model, which neighborhoods across the city now use as their public safety plan. We now can take this new plan and roll all of that under there, and we will see a safer city.
Let's go to the senator for the quick hit on crime, if you will, Senator.
Don?
Then we're going to move on to some other things.
Okay, Don, I think it would be great to have Chief Hayden on your show so that he can tell you exactly the triangle, rectangle method approach that they're using to reduce crime. And crime, we're seeing a reduction in crime as a result of what they're doing. However, we need to make sure that we give them the tools that they need to continue on working with that particular method. Right now, we need to begin to look at how do we help the police when it comes to more funding for community policing and preventing preventative patrols. How can we help when it comes to funding for mental health programs? We need to expand our mental health courts in the city of St. Louis. And we also need to look at the real root cause of the problem, and that's poverty and education. So all of this goes hand in hand. We're going to have to expand workforce training opportunities for young men and women who's looking to, pick themselves up and get out there, and they're trying to work, but they can't because they have felony charges. And that's why I've been instrumental in expunging the criminal records for nonviolent offenders. I worked on the state level as well as the local level to ban the box. So what happens is when you're going out and filling out an application on the state level and on local level, you can no longer within the departments, the state departments and local community departments, governmental departments, should I say, you don't have to say, I've been convicted of a felon on the application anymore. Because what was happening is once they saw that, the applications were thrown in the trash can. So what we have to do is remove barriers in terms of how we get people back into the workforce.
Let's move on to some other things. We have a long list here, and I'd like to encourage all of you to keep your comments as brief as you possibly can. We have three politicians we're dealing with here, and that is always a problem. Anyway, a couple of things that people are talking about, and I understand the interest in credit ratings and some of the things we've talked about. But I think the elephant in the room right now is all this discussion about the city-county merger. Very quickly, I'll start with you, Megan Green. Your thoughts on that, the way it's being handled? Should it happen? Do you want it to happen?
So I support a merger. I do not support this merger. And I think that this proposal before us is more about privatization than it is about actually merging and solving a lot of the issues of our segregation and fragmentation across the region. If we look, for example, at Flint, Michigan, and how Flint became Flint, it started when there was when their governor basically declared a financial state of emergency, took away control from local elected officials, and put his political cronies in charge, who then privatized the water department and they cut costs. If the city ends up going under the county charter, as is proposed under this, it would allow for the privatization of our public assets, and it would also negate a lot of our non-discrimination protections that we have in place in the city right now. I think that the proposal before us is more designed to phase out our earnings tax and to gut our tax base in order to force privatization of these public assets than it really is to address the real problems that our region has with fragmentation.
Louis Reed, merger?
Well, first thing is some of the things that we talked about on the public safety were done, that we have already added money to the prison diversion program. We've banned the box in the city of St. Louis. We've added more money to youth programs and services. So we're working on, and we've done all those things. We need to continue to do more. Second thing is the city-county merger. One of the bigger issues with the city-county merger, I believe, is the way the debt structure is set up, so that we would still house and own our own debt, but then the revenue would go someplace else with the hopes that we will receive revenue back to the city to at least pay our base bills. That would cause the rating agencies to put us all on the watch list overnight. That would cost us more for money, and that would be a major issue for us here in the city. Can we gain by a merger? Absolutely, there are benefits to be gained and efficiencies to be gained, but we don't even have to wait for a merger to happen to do that. We could begin to put cooperative agreements together today, right, for our public safety services. So we combine some of those things. So our academies become one, and we have unified training across all communities, right? We can do the same thing with our health department and all these other things. Those things could be done today. Finally,
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, and I'll leave the rest on the table.
Senator, let me turn to you with regard to this. Should this be a local vote, a statewide vote, this whole merger idea, and what is it going to do to African American representation in this?
That's a great question. Right now, we have the opportunity, according to our state constitution, to do a merger. We have the blueprint, Article 6, Section 30. So we can put forth the process for freeholders to start the process. We don't have to take this drastic approach in terms of totally shutting down a city government in order to merge it into a county government. One, I think that the people should decide their own fate when it comes to the city and the county. Outstate shouldn't have any role and shouldn't play no role under any circumstances in terms of if we want to merge the city and the county. This here will reduce Black representation in a way that we have never seen before. We don't know what it's going to do in terms of cost savings. Well, we just got a report out today. I have to read it from Better Together and STL Today. However, what we need to begin to look at is, one, how would this how would it help generate revenue for the city? How would it reduce crime? What would be the cost savings? And how would it impact minority representation? And right now, it will impact minority representation in a major way. We have two offices in the city of St. Louis, which is the mayor and the recorder of deeds. Those are the only two that's held by non-African Americans. The rest of them are all African Americans. And if this happens, we will have little to no Black representation. 33%, I think it would be 30% of minorities will be a part of the whole merger process when it comes to minority population.
Let's see if everybody here agrees with that. Do you agree that that's an issue here? And also in a word, and I mean that in a word, do we want a local vote here or do we want the statewide vote?
We need a local vote. There's no way that the entire state should decide the fate of this region.
Right.
The people of the region should decide the fate of this region.
Megan Green?
So I do understand that there are portions of this, particularly relating to some of the police consolidation, that would require a change in the state constitution. And so I think if there are those specific changes, let's just take those specific pieces statewide, and keep as much of it as possible as a local vote. Because if we don't have the buy-in from the city and the county on this, it is not going to be successful in the long term.
Senator, what about privatization of the airport?
Well, I don't think that if we don't allow for the people to vote, then, I would be a no vote. I believe that the people should have a right to vote. I expect us to distribute the way we think about things in terms of giving the people the power. We need to begin to allow for them to get involved in the process. This is a massive asset that we have, that we own. And at the end of the day, if the people who are trying to sell this airport, lease this airport, if they want to lease the airport, then go sell it to the people. Go tell the people what benefits or what would occur as a result of leasing this thing for 40 years. How would it impact the quality of life for people in the city of St. Louis? And if you can't sell this to the people and get them to buy into it by way of a vote, we shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
Should we? Or go ahead, Louis Reed.
Just right. I think that we should have a public vote. And at the same time, when we take a look at what this asset is, and I'm glad that the senator corrected herself and said lease, because it's a lease, but most people believe it to be a sale. This asset, if we do end up in a long-term lease agreement, this could mean somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 billion to the city. And a fully functional airport, right? But there's a long way between here and there, and it's a very hot button issue, and I think everybody should be able to weigh in on it. And I think that we're going to get there. I think we'll get to the point where we would have a bill come out of the Board of Aldermen that would go to the voters after we have enough information. But this first phase is just a phase where there is a team looking at it to come up with that does a evaluation of what it is.
Would you vote for such a bill, Megan Green?
So couple of things. I do support a public vote. I also think we need to recognize that it is very likely that the president of the board is the swing vote on the Board of Estimate and Apportionment on whether the privatization contract gets signed or not. And I will vote no. I think that this process has been flawed from the very beginning. It's been set up to benefit a few well-connected political donors. I think that knowing that the consultants only get paid if they actually privatize has set this up with some conflicts of interest from the beginning. And we also know that privatization hasn't worked out for other public assets in other cities. I think the last thing to mention is that while I support a public vote, we have seen too often that public votes can be overridden by legislative bodies. The puppy mill ban was overridden after people overwhelmingly voted for it. We see the General Assembly trying to gut clean and minimum wage. The soccer stadium was voted down, yet it came back in just another form. And so there has historically been a willingness of legislative bodies to override the will of people. And I think for that reason, it is important that we have somebody on the Board of Estimate and Apportionment who will actually stop the nonsense around this contract that never should have been signed.
Quick question for Louis Reed, just a second if you would. You talk about legislation relating to the privatization of the airport. What are you waiting for? Why hasn't it been done?
Because we don't have anything to vote on. We literally don't have anything to vote on. We have to get to the point where we know what it is to be able to put something on the ballot, and we have no idea what it is. For example, most people don't know that the maximum the city gets from the airport is $6 million a year. Mm-hmm. And if we increase traffic and everything, revenue and everything else out at that airport, all we will ever get is the $6 million a year. By the way, we have $600 million in debt that we're carrying on it that all of us are responsible for. So the question becomes, what are we going to do, right? And meanwhile, we need more money for our schools. We need to address the issues of public safety all across our city. We have an entire side of the city that is in economic decay. So what are we going to do to dramatically change that, right? So I think that it is irresponsible to say that no matter what, I will vote against it no matter what it turns out to be. Nobody knows to date what it may turn out to be. But once we know what it is and we have something in front of us to make a decision on, we put it out to the voters and say, okay, what do you think, yes or no? But right now, there is nothing that we can put out to the voters.
Very quickly, Megan Green, you
so
respond
I'll just say,
to that
I think,
irresponsible charge.
The idea of privatization, we look no farther than, Flint, Michigan, or the parking meter debacle in Chicago, where they woefully underpaid for the privatization of their parking and has caused a lot of additional issues for the city. I think we also have to look at privatization as a short-term Band-Aid solution to long-term budget issues. Any privatization money is not only going to go to pay down the debt of the airport, it's probably going to go to bail out our pension system too. And I think that we need to be real about that all of these claims that this could go into development of areas of our city that really need development, yes, we need that to happen. And I think the likelihood that privatization money actually makes it there is very low, given the debt situation that the city is in.
Gonna have to hold that thought, if you would. I've got to take another break. We'll do that now and come back and continue the conversation. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU. Now back to our conversation with State Senator Jamilah Nasheed, who is joining us from Jefferson City, St. Louis Aldermanic President Louis Reed, and Alderwoman Megan Green, as we continue our discussion about the Aldermanic presidency race. Mr. Reed, you wanted to make
Can I chime in?
Yeah, hold on 1 second, Senator.
You can let her go first now.
Okay. He's very graciously giving you the floor.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. So going back to the airport, again, I think we have to be pragmatic in our approach in terms of leadership. I don't think that we should just be saying no just for the sake of saying no. I mean, that's not how I do business in terms of how I get things done. What we need to do, though, we need to be able to understand what type of impact will this really have on our region, okay? And will there be a public vote? How much money will we receive as a result within the next 40 years for the city of St. Louis? They're predicting in the next 2 years that there will be another recession. What type of impact would that have on the shareholders? Because this is about shareholders wanting to make money as well. They're not just wanting to come in the city of St. Louis and take care of us and do a massive redevelopment on our airport. This is about shareholders making money. And so how would a recession impact this deal 2 to 3 years from now? Those are things that are unanswered. So I would like to see a economic analysis impact study to this airport deal. And I haven't seen that yet. And I would also like to see the Board of E&A. Right now, today, they have the opportunity to make a motion to guarantee a public vote. And I would love to see the president of the Board of Aldermen right now, who is Louis Reed, go to the Board of E&A, and if he's serious about taking this to a vote of the people, he will make a motion to say that we're not going to do anything. We're not going to go any further with this airport deal unless there is a vote of the people. That can be a motion made today.
Okay, Louis Reed.
All right, perfect. First thing to Alderwoman Green, when she talked about Flint, Michigan, the main issue with Flint, Michigan was its water. What was happening with the outsourced water department. I'm the guy that stopped the outsourcing of St. Louis's water department to Veolia Water. That was me. Got it done to assure that the city of St. Louis and its residents had access to quality water, and it was not controlled by some private entity, right? So that's my history. When we talk about soccer stadium deals, when the voters voted down the soccer stadium deal, the last time they voted down that additional tax for a soccer stadium deal, not the one that's before us now. That was misleading. When we look at the airport. When we to say that automatically any funds that would come in from the airport would go to pay down our pension obligation is absolutely misleading. You might as well say any additional revenue the city of St. Louis would ever get, no matter what it is, we should say no to it, because ultimately it would go to pay down our pension debt. That is not the way it works. It just does not operate like that. And I think it's important for your listeners to understand that these things are completely separate issues. We have an obligation to the residents of the city of St. Louis to make pragmatic decisions and to give them an opportunity for a better, stronger, safer, more unified St. Louis. We cannot do that by being the city of no and rejecting every business opportunity that comes before we see what it is or understand what it can do to address these systemic issues in our city. Look, we have some serious problems in our city, and here's one guarantee. We will never have an opportunity to address them, and we will never be any better than we are today if our position is every business is bad, every business opportunity is bad, and we should automatically take a position to run everything off. I think that is a defeatist position, and I think that we should not approach it in that way. Now, when we look at this airport, we have an opportunity once we know exactly what it is. I think that's when we make a decision. Nobody knows what it is right now.
Okay,
but go ahead.
Let's move on to some other things. So we want to get everybody in. Did you want to say something?
I just
Megan?
wanted to say that I think people who are pushing for tax incentive reform and for fiscally responsible government in the city of St. Louis, we are not against economic development. We are for responsible development. And I think that there's a very big difference between the two. We have been too much the city of yes when it comes to tax incentives. We have $8 billion of in-progress or planned development right now. We need to make sure that taxpayers in the city are benefiting from this development through enhanced city services and well-funded schools.
And it just, Don, I'm sorry.
Very quickly, though, please.
Very quickly. But these are really important issues. The Board of Aldermen we've taken up incentive reform. We've worked through that for years. We passed it this last session to put a new map in place that will direct development, that will say which wards, which areas get tax breaks. I think that is very important. These issues, none of the things that we're talking about today are things that we have not looked at and things that we're not working on daily, right? The difference is what we have here is the various different candidates that are running for office wanting to blur the record of the works of a lot of people in city government today. I'm not even saying myself, because on the incentive reform deal, that was Alderman Joe Rohde that brought that issue, and he's been working around the clock for years to get it done, and he got it done and got it passed. We're going to be better off because of it.
Okay, let's bring the senator back into the. Yes, go ahead.
Let me just say this: while I am running for president of the Board of Aldermen, I'm running against Louis Reed because I don't believe, under his leadership as the president, that the city is working for everyone. Okay, when you go south of Del Mar, you see all of this great development happening, a lot of economic growth happening as a result of giving billions and billions of dollars away, public subsidies at the expense of our schools. And we have individuals when you go north of Delmar, that's all children see is vacant and abandoned building block after block after block. You have individuals driving down the street, pothole after pothole after pothole. You have those that are unhoused, the homeless, sleeping in the street at 20 degrees. We have some major issues, and my opponent's been in office for over 20 years, been the president of the Board of Aldermen for 12 years. And we cannot keep doing the same thing and expect different results. The city of St. Louis is not working for everyone. And until we have a bold leader, a strong leader, an effective leader, a leader that gets results, a leader that truly understands racial equity, fairness, and a leader that knows how to collaborate with others and brings about transparency, only then will we be able to get rid of the status quo and begin to change the narrative in this city. Because again, this city is not working for everyone.
Megan Green,
we have some great things happening down south, but go north of Delmar. All you see is vacant and abandoned building block after block after block. All you see is a sense of hopelessness.
Megan Green, do you hear anything there that you would disagree with?
I don't. I think that, the senator and I agree on a lot of the problems that our city is facing. I think the places where we perhaps disagree are some of the solutions to those problems, particularly when it comes to addressing crime and things like that. I do agree that there's nuance on a lot of these issues, particularly when we look at development in our city. I think that the resolution that was passed by the board for tax incentive reform is a good step. There are a lot of things that were left out of that resolution that still need to be addressed in terms of community benefit agreements and really ensuring that development is community driven, and it needs to be codified because resolutions aren't legally binding. They don't have teeth to them. They can't force us to actually abide by the new map. We need to codify this so that we're actually held accountable and needing to carve out an exemption if we decide for some reason that we're not following these recommendations.
Speaking of new map, are we going to have a redo election on the reduction of wards in St. Louis from 28 to 14?
No, that's done. That bill was pulled by the sponsor, but you have to give me an opportunity to answer. Senator Nasheed and Alderwoman Green. So Senator Nasheed talks about homelessness. She talks about people across the city getting a fair shake. She talks about vacant abandoned buildings, and she talks about minority inclusion. So let me just give you just a snapshot of what we've done.
It'll have to be less than a minute.
It's going to be less than I've provided over 1.5 million homeless bed nights. I'd like to see what any of my opponents have done for the homeless. I've provided over 2,000 affordable housing units. Helped over 5,000 families through foreclosure mediation so that they can keep their homes. Helped over 11,000 families with rental assistance, mortgage assistance, and utility bills. Over 11,000 transitional housing units. We passed the first ever minority and women-owned business inclusion bill in the history of the city of St. Louis, and got every alderman to come on board.
I know you can go on and on, but I want to give the others a very quick opportunity to a quick wrap. Megan Green, start with you. We've only got about a minute and a half left, so make it quickly, please.
I will just say, I'm running for the president of the Board of Aldermen because the status quo in the city isn't working. We are known nationally for our problems right now, and I want us to be known for our solutions. I want, the death of Mike Brown to be our breakdown moment for our city, which gives us the opportunity to have a breakthrough moment so that in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, people across this country are looking back at St. Louis and saying, hey, we looked in the mirror and we were willing to do some very difficult, unconventional approaches in order to address our issues related to our disparities, related to reducing crime, relating to the way that we do development in this city.
Okay, and 30 seconds to 40 seconds for you, Senator. We've got to move on.
Yes, again, all we have to do is look around the city of St. Louis and see what's not happening. And it hasn't happened under the leadership of President Reed. And that's why people need to go to the polls on March the 5th and make a change, because we cannot keep doing the same thing and expect different results. And Don, I would really, really recommend that you bring on Chief Hayden so he can talk to you about the triangle method approach to crime. I think it can work.
We have a standing invitation to the chief. He's been on and will be on again, but we're not ignoring the chief, believe me. I've got to end it there, folks. Our time has gone so quickly by. Lots of things that we could have talked about but didn't have time for, unfortunately. So thanks to St. Louis Aldermanic President candidates in next month's primary, incumbent President Louis Reed, State Senator Jamilah Nasheed, and Alderwoman Megan Green. Also on the ballot, Democrat Jimmy Matthews, who's run for numerous city offices. Jerome Bowers, the Green Party candidate, unopposed. Aldermanic candidates from even-numbered wards will also be selected in the March 5th primary. KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.